Good morning! Welcome to Sunday Morning Announcements with the Jocelyn Gray avatar. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, please subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, say hi in the chat. We'd love to say hello back. If you're with us in person, hello everybody here! And if this is your first visit, please sign the guest book either in the lobby or online at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today, Sarah Ricke will be in our pulpit with The Mystery of Samhain, as she takes a deeper look into what is often considered a dark holiday. We hope you can stick around after the service today for Talkback, where we gather in a circle and discuss the service and related topics. For those online, see the Zoom chat at the end of the service for the meeting information. And later today, Sunday, October 27th, the Haunted Forest is here! The weather promises to be great for a scary night in the forest. Do you dare into the dark and twisted trails of the haunted forest? Featuring weird witches and ghastly ghouls, we promise it'll be a scream! The Haunted Forest is a guided walk through the forest with spooky fun and jump scares suitable for brave younger kids, as well as older kids and adults. The haunting starts at 7 p.m. and runs until 9 p.m. Be prepared to meet the ghouls and ghosts and other denizens of our deep woods. $10 donation for ages 10 and up, $5 for kids under 10, ages 3 and under are free. Please be aware, although our neighbors in the cemetery next door are usually very quiet, we can't promise that a few real ghosts won't join us in the forest. And note that we are not liable for lost souls, zombie infections, or any side effects from drinking the witch's brew. It's not too late to share the event from our Facebook page or from our website with everyone you know. And upcoming this week, the Social Justice Ministry Reading Groups will return this coming Thursday with Solidarity is the Political Version of Love. Lessons from Jewish Anti-Zionist Organizing by Rebecca Volkemerson and Alyssa Wise. See Mavis if you have any questions. Remember, all this and more is in your eBlast newsletter. Not receiving the eBlast? Just sign up at oakcliffuu.org/enews. It's that easy. Have you signed up but still aren't getting the eBlast? As our tech guy Scott says, don't forget to check your spam folder and make sure that news@oakcliffuu.org is in your contacts. And this week, we get to celebrate 2 member birthdays! Wishing a very happy birthday to Nancy Johnstone and to Carol Dingley. That's it for now. I hope you all have a great week.
Good morning. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness. Our opening words this morning, A Blessing for Traveling in the Dark by Jan Richardson. Go slow if you can, slower, more slowly still. Friendly, dark, or fearsome, this is no place to break your neck by rushing, by running, by crashing into what you cannot see. Then again, it is true. Different darks have different tasks, and if you have arrived here unawares, if you have come in peril or in pain, this might be no place you should dawdle. I do know what these shadows ask of you, what they might hold that means you good or ill. It is not for me to reckon whether you should linger or you should leave. But this is what I can ask you, that in the darkness there be a blessing, that in the shadows there be a welcome, that in the night you be encompassed by the love that knows your name.
Welcome to the UU Church of Oak Cliff. Here we seek to build a community where what you believe is less important than how your beliefs guide and inform your participation in the world. Ours is a community that strives to value the inherent worth and dignity of every human being here. To our returning visitors, we are so happy you have joined us again, and we know your time is precious, and we're honored to have you here today. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to anyone joining us for the first time. We recognize the bravery that it takes to come into a new place, and we're glad you're here. In our community, we take time each week to share what is in our hearts and on our minds. If your heart is heavy today, know that you don't have to carry that heartache alone. Together, we can offer comfort. For those on Zoom, share your sorrows publicly before posting them in the chat. We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy calls unto joy amplified. Together, our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. For those on Zoom, please share your joys publicly by posting them in the chat. We are not a creedal church. There is not one set of beliefs that we expect of all people to accept. Our beliefs are diverse and inclusive. We are a covenantal church. Latin for come together, covenant means a solemn agreement or promise from the heart regarding a course of action between parties. The practice of promising to walk together is the core of our faith. Simply put, it's a guide for the behavior we expect from ourselves and each other. We are bound together by the promises we make to one another, and we recite our covenant during every worship service. Please rise in body or spirit. Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance in service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
I Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. 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 Good morning, everyone, and a very blessed autumn morning to you all. It's a beautiful season, the cooler weather, the longer nights. You actually want to go outside. The autumnal equinox has passed us, and every day we step closer to winter, which means Halloween, or as I know it, Samhain, is only days away. Samhain is in many ways the herald of winter. It is when the dark half of the year truly comes into its own power, foreshadowing the long black nights ahead. Now, Samhain is a holiday shrouded in mystery, steeped in myth, and unfortunately also wrapped in all too many misunderstandings. And today I wanted to take a closer look at a holiday that many people are not so comfortable with. Shed some light on it, as the saying goes, on this beautifully dark day. For those unfamiliar with modern paganism, Samhain is what we call a Sabbat, or a solar holiday, in what we know as the Wheel of the Year. Now, the Wheel of the Year comes from the perspective of time not being just linear, but also cyclical. Now, years will go forward, there's no stopping that, but the patterns of nature, the seasons from spring to winter, and of life, from birth to death, all repeat themselves over and over. Never exactly the same, but all the important hallmarks are usually there. In the spring, the snow melts and flowers bloom. Under the summer sun, plants grow quickly and animals devour them up, getting big and strong. In the fall, fruits ripen and fields become full for harvest. And in the winter, the earth cools as it tilts away from the sun. Plants go dormant as the light becomes weaker and the nights become longer and the air becomes colder. There are 8 solar holidays in the Wheel of the Year, each of them marking either the beginning of the season or the junction halfway through. And everything is a balance in the Wheel of the Year. The seasons, the elements, and the concepts of light and dark. We'll get to that in a moment, because we need just a little bit more background on Samhain first. So the base of Samhain is a harvest holiday. For most, it's considered the last one of the year. And of the 8 holidays in the Wheel of the Year, harvest actually began back on August 1st with what we call Lammas, or the end of summer. And it continued through the autumnal equinox, which we call Mabon. And together with Samhain, it's kind of like Thanksgiving all spread out. It's all the trappings, all the trimmings, but we take a lot longer to celebrate it because it's important. Now, Samhain originated in Northern Europe, and most of the traditions we know today come from Gaelic culture specifically. And over there, winter is harsh, and it comes a lot earlier than it does here. I wish it would come here. Sometimes it feels like we don't get much winter at all. But over in Europe, and especially in Scotland, where my ancestors are from, it can snow as early as October. Frost is common overnight, and both of those will ruin your crops if you've ever tried to garden or farm. So Samhain is the last harvest festival of autumn out of sheer practicality in those places. Anything not picked after Samhain wasn't safe to eat, and so it was left in the fields, considered a sacrifice to the spirits or to the earth. And many cultures also laid out additional offerings, both in family altars and in the fields, on festival days and between them, in thanks for the earth and the spirits for a bountiful harvest. And this holy day is also followed by all the traditional ways that you process that harvest. So this is where we get all the traditions of the grand feasts, all the things that have to be eaten before they go bad. It's when you grind all the grain into flour and you bake bread and delicious pies and pastries. It's when fruits get fermented into wines and everybody gets just a little too drunk at Christmas. You know that auntie you're talking about. Animals that are too old or too weak or just too many for flocks in the winter get butchered. And so we have those wonderful roasted turkeys and those legs of lamb or those delicious spiral cut hams that we all like. Samhain is a harvest festival. It is a day of celebration, even as the season grows darker. And darkness is definitely part of the wheel of the year. So each season has their own corresponding element, depending on which tradition you're from. I like to associate spring with water, and you can see that in old rhymes like April showers bring May flowers. Summer would be fire under the full strength of the sun. Blustery autumn days means that fall is for wind, and winter has earth, deep and still and recovering in hibernation from all the vigors of the rest of the year. And like I said, these elements per season might differ upon tradition, but usually we all agree that spring and summer are the light half of the year, while autumn and winter are considered the dark half. So I want you to take a moment to think about that, a light half and a dark half. Just let it percolate in your mind. Ponder the implications for just a moment. Light and dark. And now I want you to take whatever first came to your mind, crumple it up into a little ball, and toss it right out that window. Take a step back from whatever you were thinking and allow your mind to open to a different perspective. Because just like modern paganism doesn't have the same view of time as most of our society today, it also doesn't share the same moral dichotomy often found in modern Christianity or its brethren monotheistic religions. And those religions have such a stranglehold on today's Western ethnic European-based culture. This epic battle between good versus evil, light versus dark. That doesn't exist in my religion. It's not light versus dark. It's light and dark. It's not a battle in the wheel of the year. It's a balance. We don't see any moral superiority of any element. You might favor one over another personally, but fire is not any better than water. Earth isn't any better than air, and light isn't any better than darkness. They all have their place. They all have their purpose, and the world would be massively out of balance if any one of them disappeared. Now, all of them have beneficial uses, and all of them will happily kill you without constraints or any consideration for a human ethical system, no matter which one you follow. Because the elements are not human, they are nature. Darkness is nature. Fire, water, earth, air, light, dark. They are all a part of nature. And again, a very different perspective of the faith system. The earth does not belong to humans. Nature is not something that we can own or control. Nature is something that we are part of, no matter how far removed we might feel from in our post-industrial society. There is light and there is darkness. The sun rises and the sun sets. Human philosophy has no more ability to affect this natural phenomenon than it does to change a lion's diet to veganism. It can't, it won't, and I would be very scared if it did. Nature is not there for us to change. Nature will always be there, with or without us. Humans are a part of nature. We change with nature. We do not change nature itself. And the elements exist within us, but they also exist beyond us. They cannot be contained or even defined by a single human ethical system. The elements are not human. They don't care the same way a human does. Water can be both the life-giving river and the deepest fathoms of the oceans that swallow ships whole. It can be the gentle rain, it can be the torrent of a raging river that wipes away whole towns. Fire can be both the welcoming campfire and the hot lava that flows out of a volcano to destroy whole islands. The elements are what they are, and the elements are what they want and need to be. And again, they are all in balance, as they should be, and that balance is holy. We need the air, we need the water, we need the earth. We need fire, we need light, we need darkness. And we need it not just physically, but also spiritually. And sadly, we do live in a culture that abhors darkness in all of its shapes and forms, whether or not we particularly adhere to the monotheistic religions of Abraham, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All equate darkness with evil, and it shows in every level of our culture, from literary symbolism all the way up to racism. Light is considered good, dark is considered bad. But that's not how they exist in nature. The day has no moral superiority to the night. They have different characteristics, they provide different benefits, and they require different tools and adaptations to utilize efficiently. If anyone's ever seen an eye, it's a tiny, it's not a marsupial, it's a tiniest primate. It looks like it should be a possum, but it's really a really small monkey. And they are nocturnal, and they have huge, huge, huge eyes. You get them in a bright, sunny zoo enclosure, and zoos have to put in a dark enclosure. They have to turn off all the lights if you want to see the eye. They have to have special lights that we can see that they can't if you want to see this beautiful nocturnal creature. Because if you put it in bright daylight, it wouldn't be able to see. Its eyes are too big. It takes in too much light. And it would get hurt. Too much light can hurt you. And it's not just the eye. I mentioned it before in a sermon a couple of years ago. If you ever want to know how badly light and dark can really mess with you, look at the public service announcements in Alaska. Now, down here in Texas, we're pretty close to the equator. We have a pretty balanced time for both night and day throughout the year. It's a little bit longer in winter, a little bit shorter in the summer for nights. But Alaska is so far north, it's almost to the poles, that they can have pure light or pure dark for weeks and even months at a time. And that absolutely screws with a human sleep cycle. Because a physical need for darkness is very, very real. Alaskan tourists in the summer are often warned about the dangers of the midnight sun. The constant exposure gives people not just harsh sunburns, despite the seemingly mild weather of Alaska, but it makes people restless. The constant light gives them insomnia. They might need solar lamps for light in the winter, but they also need blackout curtains in summer when 11:30 at night is still as bright as noon and you can't sleep. Try going to sleep with a light shining directly in your eyes. You're going to have a hard time doing it. And a lack of sleep from a lack of darkness will give you a whole host of health problems. Cardiovascular diseases from the stress, diabetes from your messed up eating habits as you intake entirely too much sugar or caffeine to try to stay awake, and the pure physical accidents caused from the exhaustion that you will inevitably get. A lack of sleep will even cause hallucinations and mental breakdowns. So it's all about balance. We need light and we need darkness physically to be of sound mind and body. But we also need darkness spiritually. And Samhain is probably the darkest of the holidays. But this is where I tend to lose people. This is where you start to get a little bit uncomfortable. Because Samhain is the precursor to modern Halloween, and you can see a lot of the lingering darkness in today's celebrations, even if it's been horrifically or humorously warped by our modern culture. Samhain is a complex and complicated holiday. It is a holiday of the seasonal darkness. It is a holiday for the harvest. It is a holiday of also death. The spiritual darkness of Samhain is when people really want to stop listening. Because the iron grip of Christianity's good versus evil dichotomy has tainted, I think, people's perspectives of this time of the year. And yes, I do say taint, because I like the balance of nature. I have come to love darkness in all of its dusky glory for what it is and what it should be. But so many people are so deep in the idea of equating light and dark with good versus evil that they have come to equate the modern holiday of Halloween with everything evil. And I'm sure you know who these people are. I'm sure you've met some of them. I work with people who are like this. I've literally had people tell me that they don't celebrate Halloween because it's the devil's birthday. Never mind that neither Halloween nor the devil even having a birthday is anywhere in official holy texts. But the concept comes from Christianity's early days of demonizing pagan holidays as it took over various cultures and forcibly replaced native religions. Time-honored symbols, practices, and observances became twisted, and instead of darkness being seen as part of the holy, it became unholy and wrong. Samhain is a dark holiday because of the physical darkness and because of its association with death. And people these days really, really do not like death. Humans have always had a complicated relationship with this never-changing and completely inevitable part of life. We die. Everyone dies. No one gets out alive. That is reality. If it's just the way the world works. If you have been born, you are going to die. It's not something most people like to think about. But this is where balance comes back in. And this is why the light versus dark, good versus evil dichotomy fails. Just like light and dark are elements in their own, life and death are also powers of their own fashion. They have a place, they have a purpose. And again, none of it has anything to do with human philosophy. Billions of humans over hundreds of thousands of years. Life and death are an unchanging reality, no matter what you think of them. But words have power, and no matter how much I would like to deconstruct all the taboo mumbo-jumbo our culture has assigned to death and darkness, it's not going to happen in a single sermon. So let's try a little bit of mental gymnastics. And instead, think about these two aspects of reality in slightly different terminology. Instead, I want you to think of the words material and spiritual. Material and spiritual. We as humans have material, physical requirements for our survival. We live in a material world. Madonna was not wrong. And this requires certain material things. But you're in this church and you're listening to this sermon, so you probably have also figured out that we don't live in a purely material world. We also live in a spiritual world. And just like there is a physical reality, there is a spiritual reality. And there's a phrase I really like. We don't have spirits. We are spirits. We have bodies. We don't have spirits. We are spirits. We have bodies. We are spirits. We are always going to be spirits. But we might not always have bodies. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, or whether this is your one and only one and done, eventually our material flesh will fail us. But again, we're not bodies with spirits, we're spirits with bodies. So even when the bodies fail, the spirits remain. We're still going to be spirits. It's what we're going to do as spirits without bodies. That's the great debate of eternity. And if you're uncomfortable at this part of my sermon, it both proves my point and it is the point. We are very bad about talking about death. We don't know what to do with our own spiritual. And Samhain is the time of year for a number of cultures across the world where the barrier between life and death, the distance between the material and the spiritual aspects of our world is at its thinnest. In modern paganism, we like to call this the thinning of the veil. It refers to a shroud or the veil of death that still we put over our bodies when people have passed. Samhain is a time with this thinning of the veil where spirits are said to roam the earth. When those who have passed are almost, but not quite, material again for a single night. And you can see the modern terror of death in many ways this time of year. From the outrageous monster costumes to the outright terrifying horror movies that are so ironically popular in the box office. But it is at best a twisted interpretation of ancient traditions. Samhain was never meant as a dangerous night of evil, where demons would devour the unwary or chase after their chosen victims. Samhain was much more like a holiday that we as Texans are probably at least vaguely familiar with, and that is Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. If you've ever celebrated Dia de los Muertos properly, you know it's one heck of a party. And so is Samhain. It's a holiday of death, yes, but it's a holiday when our family members who have died have the opportunity to come back to us and visit. And whether or not that's a good thing for you is something you need to take up with your therapist. But nevertheless, on Samhain, it is a reality. And again, this comes from the spiritual perspective that darkness and death are also holy, that they are part of the natural cycles of life, that the material as well as spiritual are both equally important. Dying doesn't have to mean going to heaven, and heaven doesn't have to be some glowy cloud kingdom hanging invisible in the sky. There might be special resting places for our spirits in death, but spirits don't always have to stay there. And just like dead relatives can be angels and come down from heaven in Christian mythology, so too can your pagan or heathen ancestors come to visit you from time to time. Samhain just happens to be the most convenient time. You can almost think of death as when our spirits go away to live on an island out in the ocean. The island is very far away. The ocean itself is very rough. Most of the time, as spirits, want to come back to visit the land of the living, they have to swim or row back to shore. It's really difficult to manage. They can't stay long, and they can't do much because they're tired. And there's no cell service, so you can't call them. Please don't bring Ouija boards here. Those don't count. But there is a bridge, a single bridge. And that single bridge is a drawbridge. And usually it's one-way traffic only. You die, you go. But for one night a year, for the night of Samhain, that drawbridge is down, it's toll-free, and it's open in either direction. Spirits make a party of it, so their living relatives do too. Now, I'm not going to try to convince you that all things that are spirits were once human. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. We're not the only living creatures on the planet that have the ability to have spirits. Some spirits might have never been human, and modern religion likes to call them demons or ghouls. But just like you would encounter a living wild animal that's not human, usually if you give it some space and leave it alone, we can all go about our days and avoid each other just fine. And just like living humans, most human spirits, ghosts, or whatever you want to call them, usually have some place to be and someone to see. They might say hello on their way or stop to chat for a few minutes. They might be cranky and yell at you, but they're no more irritated or unfriendly than they were while living. On Samhain, the spirits can cross the veil. They can touch the material world for the night. On Samhain, you get to become face to face with the fact that the spirits are going to be all around you. Whether you like it or not, they're going to be there. You'll feel them, you'll face them, you'll see them. And one day you might be them. And that's what really terrifies people, I think. I'll keep saying it. Our culture is really, really bad about dealing with death. It's bad enough when the people we love die, but the concept of losing our own material bodies and becoming purely spirit scares the heck out of a lot of people. Humans have a hard time facing the mortality that is inherent with being mortal. On Samhain, there's no getting away from that reality. But rather than being a night of terror, Samhain was a night of comfort. Samhain is a solace in the darkest season of the year, that the spiritual does exist alongside the material, and that however briefly we can touch it, it does meet. And we can sit with it on this night, and it can sit with us. It's a very big and very heavy aspect of the holiday, one that our culture has left us very ill-prepared to carry. We're not taught to have the kind of introspection necessary to sit with that spiritual weight. That for one night, the vastness of the universe and eternity all coalesce to come say hello. But even if it feels overwhelming, Samhain isn't about the terror of dying. It's the consolation that even beyond death, we will persist. That even beyond the material, the spiritual is real. That our love will continue, that our loved ones will continue, that we will continue, and that we can call the spiritual back to the material, and that the shift from material to spirit isn't the end of anything. It just makes it harder to see when you're still alive. The spirits are already there. We are already there. And it's always been true for those who know how to look. Samhain is just the time of year when it is darkness that makes it easiest to see. So who will you see? Blessed be. Please enjoy Samhain or Halloween or Dia de los Muertos or whatever other holiday you choose to celebrate this time of the year. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
In the spring of 2021, we added a second covenant to our weekly worship service. Our Widening the Circle of Concern, WCOC we call it, work takes its name from an in-depth UUA study that was published in 2020 and with which we have been actively engaged ever since. The words of this covenant are in your order of service and will also appear on the screen. We, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff, commit ourselves to the study and dismantling of racism and oppression within our congregation. We commit our congregation and ourselves to the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression. We commit ourselves to listening, to learning, and to action. When we fail, we commit ourselves to trying again and again. We covenant to begin this work and to continue until all of us can truly say that we are a beloved community of justice, equity, and compassion. The gifts you make to our weekly offering or through your annual pledge represent far more than lines on a spreadsheet. Your contributions are a tangible commitment to the mission and vision of this congregation. The offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. Members, if you are contributing cash toward your pledge, please use an envelope from the basket and write your name on it. You can also donate by text or through our website, and there you can see details on the order of service.
Our closing words today are from Jennifer Grace, Embrace the Night. Universal mystery. Guide us away from the desire to shine light in all the corners. Teach us to embrace the night For without the darkness, we never see the stars.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.